There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Hello and welcome. I have the pleasure of introducing this agenda item and our speakers today. Before I do, though, I would just like to ask that all questions are saved to the end of the presentations, when we'll be asking the audience to raise their hands for any questions for the speakers. The presentation topic for today is how registries have supported businesses throughout COVID-19. COVID-19 has changed our world in so many ways. The pandemic undoubtedly has impacted each and every one of us in some way. Yet, despite the hard and challenging times we've been through, we've all kept going. We've helped support businesses keep their essential operations running and keep the world turning. We have 3 speakers with us today. The first speaker will be Noor Amir Abdul Aziz, and we will then be moving to Ang Seok-hee, and then finally to Mustafa Natal. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our first speaker, the Chief Executive Officer, Companies Commissioner Malaysia, Noor Amir Abdul Aziz.
Thank you. I'm Noor Azima Abdul Aziz. Thank you. A very good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Companies Commission of Malaysia, or SSM, our acronym, I wish to thank the organizer of CRF 2021 for inviting us to participate in this conference. I wish to also congratulate the organizing team of the host URSB Uganda Registration Bureau for successfully conducting this inaugural or first ever virtual CRF conference. Next, may I have the slide being shown to the participant?
Okay, so the slide should be appearing in just a second to everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, this slide is showing the table of contents of areas that I hope to cover within 10 minutes time. Yeah, the first is the SSM overview. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Move to the next slide, please. Excuse me. Can the slide be?
Sorry, Ellie, are you able to progress us on to the next slide, please?
I'm sorry, the slide is still not being, oh yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is an overview of SSM, Companies Commission of Malaysia is actually, and the acronym SSM is in our national language, which is Suruhanjaya Syarikat Malaysia, which means Companies Commission of Malaysia. We were established in 16th of April 2022, and we are a corporate registry for companies and business entities in Malaysia. We provide, we supply information, corporate and business information to the public. We enforce the laws that we administer. We have 7 under us, the legislation that we administer, which is the main is the Companies Commission of Malaysia Act, that is our Establishment Act. And then of course the Companies Act 2016, Interest Scheme Act, all 7 are being enforced by SSM. And lastly, and not the promoting of corporate governance and corporate sustainability is also part of our functions. These are the key functions of SSM. Of course, we have all the rest being custodian of corporate information and enforcement. Next slide, please. On national initiatives, yes, the topic of this session is with reference to initiative to assist business community and corporate sector affected by COVID-19 pandemic. Malaysia, being just like other countries, since the onset of the COVID-19 outbreak in 2020 last year, and the severity of the pandemic, this has led most countries around the world, including Malaysia, to implement various strategies and measures to address the crisis. And for Malaysian government, we have so far announced economic assistance and stimulus packages totaling 530 billion, which is separate from allocation provided under our 2021 and 2020 budgetary allocation. This slide reflects the various economic stimulus packages introduced, such as the Economic Stimulus Package 2020, the National Economic Recovery Plan, which we call Penjana, Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package, additional Prihatin SME, or what we call SME Economic Stimulus Package, plus, and then Prihatin Supplementary Initiative Package, the strategic program to empower people and economic and national people's well-being and economic recovery package. So these are all that we have introduced so far in Malaysia. Next, for SSM, Companies Commission of Malaysia. Next slide, please. Being a government agency, as Companies Commission of Malaysia, SSM, we are under the Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry in Malaysia. We have introduced various initiatives in 2020, and this slide shows the 11 initiatives that we have introduced for 2021 for this year alone. Yeah. This is to facilitate and reducing the burden of the corporate sector and business entrepreneurs during the movement control order. We call it, in Malaysia, we call it MCO, which was announced by government due to the outbreak of pandemic. We have 11 altogether that I wish to share with you. Next slide, please. The first is the introduction of free registration of businesses. This is earlier launched last year in 2020, and this year it was further enhanced starting from 15th of February 2021. We call it the SPPP, or free registration of businesses, and this is targeted to individuals who are in the B40 group. So ladies and gentlemen, in Malaysia, we have Malaysians are classified into 3 different income tiers. The category that we have for household income, the B40 are those with lower household income group, those earning below 4,850 ringgit Malaysia. So they are under this category, and they are eligible to, if they wish to embark into business, to carry out business, then they are eligible to apply for free registration of businesses. So far for this year, we have the statistics here. We have 21,397 B40s, as well as students, those who are in the higher learning education, the polytechnics, colleges, or IPTs that we have in this country. They can apply for free, and 21,397 have benefited with free registration of businesses. Next, number 2, sorry, can you go back to the, the second is continuation. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? This is for the second, yes. Second is continuation of free business registration for disabled entrepreneurs. We also have a free registration for disabled entrepreneurs, and so far 1,443 disabled entrepreneurs have benefited from this scheme. Next. The third is extension of time for free registration of SSM Biz Trust until 31st of December 2021. Biz Trust is where we have is a form of a business starter kit that we offer, and this is now free until end of this year. And it serves as a digital identification and business entity information review, and it will be automatically given to business entities now for free until December this year. And so far we have given out a free registration of BizTrust to 678,000 companies, meaning these are the numbers of companies, entities which have benefited from this program. Next. The fourth initiative is exemption of compound for late business renewal and late registration of new businesses. This is where we have exempted the compounds if entrepreneurs they are late in renewing their businesses. They are exempted from compounds, and this is to encourage entrepreneurs to conduct business formally by complying with legal requirements and take advantage of benefits by formalizing their business entities. And so far, the number is quite huge. Compound for late business renewal, 61,000 businesses were exempted from late renewal fee, as well as compound for late business registration. The number is around 3,000 businesses have been given the exemption. Next. Our initiative number 5 is a reduction of compound, substantial reduction of compound of 90% were given from the original value of compound for application to strike off company under our section 549 and 550 of the Companies Act. This will be until December 2021 as well. And usually companies, when they are applying for striking off, most of the companies they are companies which are which have failed to apply. So that's most cases they have been issued with compounds, and to allow them to ease this process, we are providing the 90% compounds. So that is the explanation on this. And so far the numbers are there. On numbers of notices issued, around 18,800. Number of companies which have been given the 90% compounds is 4,501, and number of directors being given 90% in compound reduction is 6,080. Directors have been given 90% compound reduction. Our initiative number 6 is increasing the value of indebtedness. This is the inability to pay debts threshold for companies. If they are unable to pay, originally the amount, the threshold was 10,000 ringgit, but because of the outbreak of the pandemic, it has been increased from 10,000 ringgit to 50,000 ringgit. Earlier, it was introduced in the form of temporary measures in 2020, but in 2021 we have gazetted the amount, the threshold value of 50,000 ringgit, and we notice it's effective in terms of lowering the number of companies being wound up or petition being filed in court for companies. For example, prior to the outbreak in 2019, the number was 1,760, the number of companies being wound up. Compared to 2020 and 2021, we have around 665 for 2020 and 623 for 2021. These are the statistics that we have. It shows there are some benefits when we increase the threshold for inability to pay debts from 10,000 to 50,000 ringgit. Next slide. Number 7 is recognition of continuing professional education, CPE. This is just a recognition of virtual or online training to allow or to ease company secretaries to collect their CPE points, where we recognize virtual training as part of the CPE points. Next. On number 8 initiative is we propose amendments to the Companies Act to enhance our corporate rescue mechanism and our scheme of arrangement. This is in the pipeline. We have finalized the draft bill to amend the Companies Act to expand the application of corporate rescue mechanism so that more companies would be able to apply for CRM. We have 2 in Malaysia, which is the corporate voluntary arrangement, CVA, and the judicial management or JM. So now it's being amended to enhance the provision, as well as to strengthen provisions related to scheme of arrangement, and to enable companies that apply for judicial management orders to propose schemes of arrangement to obtain rescue financing from new financial sources to help companies to recover their financial situation. Next. Likewise, for limited liability partnership, we are also proposing to insert all the corporate rescue mechanism framework, the scheme of arrangement, to be inserted into the Limited Liability Partnership Act, so that LLPs, which is also they are also being recognized as body corporate, they can apply for rescue mechanism as companies, yeah, and this provision will be inserted into the LLP Act once the amendments are approved by Parliament. Next. Number 10 is we have also introduced a 30-day moratorium period from the last date of the total lockdown for statutory document lodgement. This is where we allow 30 days moratorium period for all types of documents, because we understand companies were not able to prepare corporate lodgement of information. They are unable to prepare, they are unable to go to our office, and especially they are unable to prepare all this documentation, and we have provided the 3 days moratorium. And now, because in Malaysia, because we have already at the 4th phase of lockdown of MCO, we are now back in office. We are now announcing to our stakeholders that moratorium period is from 1st December. The 30 days now will run from 1st of December until 31st of December 2021, meaning come 1st January next year, they should be able to, they must comply and lodge all the documents which have not been lodged to the registrar. So this is the initiative to provide that window for companies to comply with documentation lodgement to the Corporate Registry of Malaysia. Next.
Apologies, 30-second warning, yes. Please, just so we can
thank you.
Make sure everybody has a chance.
The last is the extension of time for all companies to prepare the financial statement. And this is where we are providing until 31st of January from November, for companies which are having financial year end from November 2020 to 31st of January 2021. So that's the last initiative, number 11. With that, I wish to end my presentation on the 11 initiative by Companies Commission of Malaysia. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that incredibly interesting presentation, and apologies for the slightly rough start there in terms of getting the presentation up and just moving the slides along. The joys of doing a virtual conference. It takes a little bit of working out logistically, but thank you very much for bearing with us. It's with that I would like to hand over to our next speaker, the Divisional Director, the Customer Experience Division, Accounting and Corporate Registry Authority from Singapore.
Thank you. Could I just do a sound check that everyone can hear me and that my slides are being shown?
I can confirm that I can hear you and I can see your slides as well.
Excellent, thank you. Good afternoon, fellow CRF members. My name is Ang Seok Hui. I'm the Divisional Director of the Customer Experience Division from the Accounting and Corporate Regulatory Authority of Singapore, otherwise known as ACRA. And on behalf of my Chief Executive, Mr. Ong Kia Hong, and my fellow ACRA colleagues who are all attending this CRF conference, I bring you warm greetings from Singapore. Today, I'm pleased to share on how ACRA has supported businesses in Singapore during the COVID pandemic. So I'll start by sharing about COVID-19's impact on Singapore businesses, followed by measures and initiatives that ACRA undertook to help and support businesses, especially at the height of the COVID-19 crisis. And finally, what continues to be done for businesses as everyone adjusts to this new normal in which we must learn to live with COVID-19. So first, COVID-19's impact on Singapore. We know that for many countries, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented and wide-ranging impact on trade and markets, affecting businesses across all sectors. And in Singapore's case, it's led to both demand and supply side shocks to the economy. In short, this is Singapore's worst economic crisis since our independence in 1965. And the sectors for us that have been the most severely affected are those that rely on international travel. So that includes air transport, accommodation, and other tourism-related sectors. Consumer-facing sectors, such as retail, food services, have also been badly affected by the cutback in domestic consumption amidst the stricter safe distancing measures that were progressively rolled out. This year, though, the good news is we are seeing some stabilization, recovery of the economy. Our vaccination program has made good progress, and there's progressive easing now of domestic and border restrictions. So for the full year, we expect GDP growth rate to come in at between 4 to 5% compared to a 5.4 contraction last year. So like many other countries, the Singapore government stepped in to provide assistance to companies ranging from rental relief, wage support, and financial grants. And in this regard, the vast amounts of business data that ACRA collects as a corporate registry has been a key source of information for various government agencies to analyze and launch business support programs that could provide targeted help to specific sectors. Over 100 government agencies in Singapore have access to ACRA's business data through a government-wide data sharing platform. And at the height of the COVID crisis last year, we saw a multifold increase in the usage of our business data. Apart from support for businesses, the government has also sought to work in partnership with industry-led coalitions to further encourage business innovation and entrepreneurship. And with some sectors declining, it was also important to identify new growth opportunities for Singapore. Now, one interesting observation that we would like to share is that during this COVID pandemic, when one would have thought we would see a decline in business growth, we actually saw the opposite happening. There was a 7% growth of business formation, chiefly led by 3 industry groups: retail trade, a significant portion of which was online, food and beverage, and manufacturing. It was an unexpected trend, though I understand from the presentation by Malaysia, they were also seeing the same trend. So I think it would be interesting to see if this trend is also observed in the other countries as well. I'll move on now to share on some of the key measures that ACRA undertook to support businesses in Singapore. So our first priority was to ensure that registry services stayed open, and we were able to serve our customers, and even with all our staff working from home. And as all of our registry services are online and have been so since 2003, there was minimal disruption for businesses in this aspect. And in FY 2020, we processed another 2 million online transactions. Since early April 2020, all our staff have been working from home, besides laptops and other equipment that one uses when working from home, we also implemented other digital work solutions such as soft phones, which allows our officers to receive calls over the internet via their office laptops. We also adopted digital signatures to replace wet ink signatures. There was, however, some work that had previously required physical meetings and interactions, for which we had to be creative and find alternative solutions. For example, our colleagues involved in enforcement work switched to remote inspections on companies to check if they were maintaining their register of registrable controllers. Practice monitoring inspections were conducted remotely on public accountants and public accounting entities. Learning skills upgrading for officers continued. It was important, and we did so virtually. And despite the constraints, in February last year, we were also able to launch a new online registration and filing system for a new corporate structure for investment funds that we call variable capital companies. At the start of this year, we also completed a major tech refresh for BizFile Plus. That's our main online registry and filing portal. All of this was important to ensure that we could continue to serve our customers and meet their registration and filing needs. Now, there was also another priority area for us, which was helping to support businesses during the COVID crisis. Similar to what Malaysia shared, as the COVID-19 crisis escalated, we anticipated that companies were going to have difficulties meeting their filing obligations. So we worked with other government agencies, including the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Ministry of Law, for example, to quickly review and introduce temporary legislation and issue guidelines to help companies hold digital annual general meetings and be able to give more time to them to prepare and file their annual returns. Penalty waivers were also introduced in view that companies just could not file in time with the COVID safety measures that were causing great operational difficulties for them. And to assist businesses in financial distress, we also worked with the Ministry of Law to introduce a simplified insolvency program that would provide simpler, faster, lower cost ways for micro and small enterprises to restructure their debts and wind up in an orderly manner. Other measures we undertook included issuing a financial reporting practice guidance to help company directors in their review of financial statements. For example, indicators of non-compliance with accounting standards or areas to look for when assessing the impact of COVID-19 on their companies. We worked with key stakeholders in the business community to also issue an audit practice bulletin to highlight to public accountants audit areas that could be impacted by the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, in this last section, I would like to share some of ACRA's ongoing work to help provide a trusted and vibrant business environment, even as Singapore transits into this new normal in which we all have to learn to live with this COVID-19 pandemic. So COVID-19 has underscored the need for businesses to go digital in terms of business operations. For example, whether it's interacting with other businesses, stakeholders, or with government agencies. And as mentioned earlier in my presentation, ACRA's registry services are all online. So this has ensured that businesses could continue to register, fulfill their statutory obligations in filing, while still adhering to all the COVID safety measures. But we recognize that more can still be done to further help businesses. So a key priority for ACRA has been to continue engaging our stakeholders, holding dialogues and meetings, now they're done online, where we can continue to have conversations with our stakeholders and better understand their challenges and evolving business needs. So from all these engagements that we've done, some of the measures that we've started to roll out include, for example, making it more fuss-free and simple for companies to file with us. So last year we worked with software providers to link their software to transactional APIs, that's application program interface, we developed to enable companies to automate the preparation and filing of annual returns. This eliminates the need for businesses to even log on to our online filing portal. Earlier this year, we also launched a new online startup guide and interactive tools known as e-advisors on the Singapore Government Go Business portal, so that aspiring entrepreneurs, first-time business owners, could better understand their business options, statutory obligations before they even take the first step of setting up a business. We also piloted the TrustVar service that adopts blockchain technology to enable users to verify the data in our business information products. We also sought to improve our ability to provide online help to businesses by piloting a new intelligent online digital assistant. So it's powered by natural language processing and predictive analytics. This digital assistant can help to engage customers in a more personalized conversations, as well as understand and interact better with them. It's still pilot stage, but we do intend to start rolling out even more to more functions and transactions. Work is also currently underway on proposed legislative amendments that will include changes such as facilitating digitalization for companies, for example, enabling them to hold digital meetings. So this concludes my presentation on how ACRA has helped Singapore businesses through the COVID pandemic, as well as our ongoing efforts as we start to slowly shift from pandemic to endemic. And I just want to thank you for your attention. And I look forward to hearing and learning from our fellow CRF members on their own experiences in supporting businesses in these unprecedented times. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, that very insightful presentation. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing the screen a second. There we go. Okay, just a reminder, we do have a few questions in the chat. I will be going through those and addressing them with the individual speakers. However, we'll just save those just for the end, just so that we know how much time we've got as well. On that note, I would like to hand over to our third and final speaker for this agenda item, which is the Director of Insolvency and Receivership from the Ugandan Registration Services Bureau, Mustafa Nateli.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremony. My name is entirely Mustafa from Uganda Registration Services Bureau. I'm the Director of Insolvency and Receivership. You are coming out to this conference. I would request that my presentation is projected for the benefit of all the participants. I will share experience on our part as Uganda Registration Services Bureau on how we have supported businesses throughout COVID-19. I'll give a brief background. Of course, we know COVID-19, the initial cases identified in Wuhan, China in 2019, and that's the name COVID-19. Uganda registered its first case in March 2020. So that means we enjoyed a relative peace before the virus actually reached our country. At that stage, the measures which were implemented were quite flexible: social distancing, wearing face masks, and hand washing and sanitizing. For that time, the economy was still operating quite normally. On 31st March 2020, we got the first lockdown imposed. At that time, the numbers were going up. So the first lockdown was imposed on 31st March 2020. Which restricted a number of businesses. What were excluded were the essential services, service providers, and fortunately, registry services were classified as essential services and were excluded. So our office was able to operate and continue offering services to the business community. In early June 2021, we had the second lockdown, which was imposed in the wake of the second wave of COVID-19. It is important to note that at least in the second wave, we were quite prepared because we had experienced the first lockdown, which caught many agencies and institutions unprepared. My colleague earlier talked about Uganda Registration Services Bureau, which is an agency established by an act of parliament, specifically to carry out registration functions under different laws. And such registrations include copyright rights registration, other intellectual property rights registration, business registration, insolvency services, as well as civil marriages. So for those services, some of them, by the time we went into the COVID, the first lockdown, some of them were partially automated. But the first lockdown was a wake-up call to automate almost all our services. So the first intervention we took as a registry was to automate almost all our services to ensure continuity and for the businesses that were operating remotely. We introduced a number of applications in respect of those specific services to enable the business community or the registry users to access our services remotely. That also necessitated equipping our staff, where some of them were operating remotely with the appropriate technology and equipment to be able to carry out their registrations in respect of the work which has been submitted online. We also maintained some staff in office, also managed the rotation of staff for some services which were not yet online, or where clients were interested in having physical engagement with our staff. We had minimum number of staff within our offices to continue engaging with our clients and offer the required services. What was key was stakeholder management and engagement in this transition process. I mentioned that although some of the services were online, others were still manual. So we had to do a lot of stakeholder engagements to ensure that they transit from the manual processes to the digital platforms which we had established. Yes, please, if you could move to the next slide. Okay, thank you. The COVID-19 pandemic public health measures that were introduced to curb the spread of the pandemic ultimately had an impact on the business operations. Most businesses were forced to downsize. Others actually were forced to exit the market because of the changing market conditions. But as Uganda Registration Services Bureau, we are honored also to host what we call the Official Receiver Office, which is established by an act of parliament called the Insolvency Act. That act establishes the office of the official receiver, and the Registrar General, who is the Chief Executive Office of Uganda Registration Services Bureau, was appointed as the official receiver. That act is important in as far as it incorporates what we call corporate rescue mechanisms in respect of companies, and then arrangements in respect of individuals. In other words, our office, which is mandated to implement the provisions of that act, among the key things we must ensure is to ensure that insolvent entities are supported to survive as opposed to closing them. Of course, we are alive to the fact that many companies were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown measures. And as an office, although the law gives us powers to petition for winding up of entities that are insolvent, I must report that we have opted not to exercise that power in respect of those entities, but instead we have opted to engage them and ensure that they adopt reorganization proceedings as opposed to exiting business. I know there is one which is now at the court level, so it is undergoing a reorganization process. We have other entities which we have engaged, which we are at the verge of exiting, but they have taken on new investors, or other investors have taken over the entities to ensure economic stability. So our office has been instrumental in ensuring that companies are encouraged to take up administration proceedings as opposed to liquidation proceedings. And these cases where such companies were of the opinion that they are insolvent, but they have an opportunity to restructure their proceedings. So essentially the process involves the appointment of a provision administrator to manage the affairs of the company, to reorganize its affairs, and ensure that that company is returned to profitability. This necessarily requires such companies to come up with reorganization plans, or administration deeds with its creditors, and the administrators supervise the implementation of the administration debt. In summary, our interventions have focused on 3 areas. Number 1, we have focused on automation of our processes to ensure service continuity. We have had stakeholder engagement to ensure that there is transition from the manual platforms to digital platforms, And then finally, we have encouraged our stakeholders to adopt corporate rescue mechanisms as opposed to exiting the markets as a result of the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. I thank you very much.
That's excellent. Thank you very much for another very interesting and insightful presentation. Before we move on, I would just like to read out a couple of questions that we've had in the chat box for our speakers. The first question is for Malaysia, which is, please share where you got the mandate to waive fees and extend lodgement dates and other dispensations given to companies during COVID. To them over. Is this your act? Any standing provisions to that effect to share?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Yes, for that question, yes, there is enabling provision under the Companies Act 2016, as well as the Registration of Business Act, where we waive the late penalty fee, as well as exemption of fee. These are all given under the Companies Act, as well as the relevant act, to the registrar, as well as by way of invocation of the minister's power to exempt certain provision from the act. Yes, and another question is waiver of compounds. That is also a mandate given under the for business registration. Is under the Registration of Business Act 1956. So all in all, as I've mentioned, these are all enabling provision that are provided for under the laws that we administer. That is my response to the question. Andrew?
Excellent, thank you very much. And then for our final question of the day, because I'm very conscious of the time, unfortunately, I think we could keep this conversation going all morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. The next question is for Singapore, which was, what were the biggest challenges for your registry staff in keeping services operating throughout COVID?
As I mentioned earlier, our registry services are fully online, 100% online. So that helped a lot. But in terms of our registry staff, I think the same goes for all other jurisdictions. We were not used to working from home. And so, especially in the case for Singapore, where since April 2020, and except for brief periods, the staff have continued to work from home. And probably you can tell from my background behind, I'm still at home. So it has meant that there was a need to really look at being able to provide all the necessary equipment, the support, tapping on technology a lot to enable us to still be able to conduct not just the online meetings, but even, as I mentioned, how we even went virtual in terms of training sessions. So we actually conducted training workshops and so on, which was really difficult. I think for a lot of us as human beings, you miss that face-to-face interaction. So it has been a lot of adjustment. I think the other area which I think has come out a lot for in all the countries is the need to take care of your staff, mental issues as well, continue to ensure that you're still able to provide that sort of emotional support for staff, and they still feel that need, that they're part of that organizational culture. So we've actually also continued to conduct a lot of sessions, where you would have your work plan sessions, or what we call town hall sessions. We've gone virtual on that so that we were still able to at least try and have that sort of community, online community, and the officers could come together, still discuss, talk to each other, and provide that support.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. On that note, I would like to bring this session to an end and move us all on to the next agenda item. Thank you again to all our speakers and attendees for this wonderful session. Thank you. Goodbye.